Hey everybody, how we doing today? So, welcome to How to Catch a Florida Keys Tarpon number 4. Well, we're going to be talking about rods, reels, and line. Now, every year I go through and I put together a video, but it's more geared towards those people that are specifically here to target tarpon and more specific gear that kind of adapts to that, the person that's just got tarpon on their brain. Where this video, since it's more of a beginner's guide, we're going to look at adapting maybe our existing gear that we've got. Maybe it's our light tackle gear, maybe it's a bit of offshore reef gear that we've got. Since it's not going to be really worthwhile to go out and drop $3, $4, $5, $1,000 for something that you maybe just have one evening that you just want to try just for the sake of it, or give it a couple of shots to see what happens. All right. So it's going to be a little bit of a different. We're going to talk about adapting things, compensate for the lack of tarpon specific gear versus how to make that actually work. All right, let's take a look at our rods, reels, line. Now there's two key components that we need to think about. One is line capacity, and that part directly correlates to the second part, which is the procedurals. Now the procedurals are everything that you have to do right after you get that bite to get your kayak or your boat turned and to the point where you're actually chasing down that tarpon and recovering line. The line capacity gives us that time frame to allow us to get to that point. And if you don't have that line capacity to get that point, then you're either going to have to lock up that drag and just break it off, or you're going to end up getting spooled and your line is gone, and you definitely don't want that. Okay, so rods and reels, you can use your light tackle stuff, but there's some considerations that you need to think of. One is mono is probably not going to work because you just can't get that much line capacity using mono versus braided line. Now if you've got braided line, full of braided line, you have a decent amount on a 4,000 reel, or at the lower side even on a 2,500. So if you're using your light tackle stuff and you've got 10, 15, 20 pound braid on there, which is kind of the standard for the keys, you're totally fine there, okay? But it just means we need to offset that with making sure our efficiencies on our procedurals are very streamlined. Now, talking about drags, I constantly say this, it's a 30-minute fight and you don't want to get lockdown drag and pull yourself into that tarpon. It does no good. It doesn't tire out the tarpon because every time you pull yourself closer to it, that's what you're doing. You're pulling yourself closer to the tarpon. It's really not putting that much strain on the tarpon. All right. So there's no real rush. 30-minute fight. Okay. So the drag is not that going to come in too much of a factor until that last portion where if you want to land it for photo op, then you need to kind of put some more torque on it. And that falls hand in hand with the rod. It really doesn't do that much since we're not locking down and we're not fighting an amberjack off the wreck, okay? We're a 30-minute fight. We're just going to play this guy out no much different than you're going to fight a striper or a big trout or something like a salmon or something like that. You're just pressure, okay? And just maybe a little bit of pumping to just put more pressure as you can without sucking yourself and getting that boat or kayak right above that tarpon, and then it's freaking out and you're worried about breaking your rod in half. And talking about that, that's where the ugly sticks might actually be a benefit. I worry a lot with my Teramars is that I'm going to snap that tip when they start running under and getting these funky angles, or I'm trying to bring it closer so I can grab the line to land them. Where with an ugly stick, you don't care, you can turn them into a pretzel and they'll be fine. All right, so that's kind of the rods and reels. You can get away with light braid because of that fact. We're not going to be putting a ton of pressure on it. Where you do need to have the heavier line is the leader, okay? Just because you're using light tackle doesn't mean you could shortcut the leader part of it. You have to use the same stuff I use for my heavy duty rigs, which is at the minimum 40-pound leader to 80-pound leader. And that's strictly because of not brake force, but chafing, okay? Tarpon, when you get that bite, that line will rub against their face, the cartilage, the bone, the gill plates, and eventually it'll rub until it scuffs up and then it'll break on you. So that's why you can't use that same 15, 20 pound leader that you might be using with the light tackle. Hooks, same deal with my hooks. 7/0 circle works fine. But that's kind of it. Rods and reels, we're going to be using light drag. We're going to be in a long fight. Not that big of a deal. It's more geared towards not having a lot of play time to be screwing around. The procedural sides is very important, and that's what we'll focus on next. Let's talk about the procedural parts. Okay, when I'm talking about procedures, it's basically that point where you've hooked up with that tarpon, it's done its couple of jumps, and then it's just hang the Cuba. All right, from that point to when you get your boat or kayak actually facing towards that fish the way it's running, and you're actually moving along with that tarpon, and you're either neutral where it's just pulling you, or you're actually above it and your recovering line. So between those two, that's your race. And your race isn't against that tarpon, it's not against time, it's against your line capacity and getting spooled. All right. So as you lessen your line capacity, that means you have to be more efficient at those procedurals. My procedurals is boom, making sure at the most efficient time. However, when you watch my videos, I don't always tend to do that. Most of the time it's, oh crap, I don't have my Mirage drive in, the pedals, so I have to take those out, put those in. All right. Then it's a matter of releasing myself, whether it be my stakeout pull, or if I'm using my bait anchor, I've got to pull it up, or at best, I just have my one flick of my quick release anchor. Then I use my pedals to power myself and start turning with the rudder to turn myself in the direction of that tarpon. And then boom, I'm finally catching up where I'm neutral or I'm actually recovering line. That's my procedurals. On a paddle kayak, it might be from the most efficient way of always fishing with your paddles in your lap if you're sitting down, all right? So that you're not having to unstrap it, reaching it around, do this and that. It's already ready to go. You can use one hand to get yourself turned. Okay, pop that quick release anchor, which hopefully you understand is super imperative. You don't have the time to try to one hand up an anchor. It's just not practical. Even trying to pull a stakeout pull with one hand can oftentimes be very, very difficult. Quick release, one finger, pop it off. No knots, nothing like that. On a boat, same deal. Couple anglers on there. The one person that gets the bite focuses on getting through the jumps and then playing that fish, preparing for it to jump again. That second angler has to be the one that does the procedurals. Puts a rod in the rod holder, runs up to the front bow, throws off the quick release anchor, comes back, fires up the motor, get that thing going, turning the boat until it's in the right direction. That angler helping him, telling him how far to go, which way it is. Okay, then going back, reeling in the lines. Okay, getting that angler on the bow of the boat, and then from there it's just a matter of communications, how fast to go, speed up, slow down, turn left, turn right, etc. Okay, those are all the procedurals, and those are all limited by line capacity. All right, how much time do you have to get through those before you get spooled? So lighter gear you go, less capacity, more efficient you need to make sure that you are of getting through those procedurals. All right, so anyways, hopefully that's helpful. I'll go ahead and catch a couple tarpon on this light tackle stuff, just kind of make things a little different. I like to change things up anyway, so makes it a little bit more of a challenge. But otherwise, yeah, hope that kind of helps you out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye.